Hi there. So I'm going to talk to you about True Rating, which is one of the apps available on the AEVI marketplace. If you have any questions, you know, it's a nice group, so do shout out if you would like. So essentially, True Rating is sort of acknowledging the problem that a lot of businesses have with getting feedback from their customers. As an example of the feedback, I imagine very few of you have been thoughtful enough to give any feedback to the restaurants that you ate in last night or the hotels that you stayed in, and presumably have no intention of doing so over the next week. Typically, businesses will get about 1% of feedback, so it's not really representative. It's quite difficult to make business decisions based on this kind of feedback. They'll get it maybe days or weeks after the actual event, where they can do very little about that kind of feedback. And there's a lot of issues today with the feedback not being trusted, about it not being validated. Along with that, in the data that we see, about 33% of customers are not impressed with the experience that they're getting from businesses. But without understanding what it is or where it is, there's very little action they can take. And so, True Rating is a sort of a consideration on what if we made it so simple for you to feedback to a business at a point that was critical to that experience. And so we've created True Rating, which gets customer insight at the point of payment and utilizing the moment that you pay with a business. What this means for the world of tomorrow is that you see really, really representative feedback from customers. We see response rates of 88%. Just envisage what you can do if you have a gauge on what 88% of your customers are feeling about their experience. And because it's linked to a payment, it's validated. It's from a validated customer that has experienced that business. And it's also available to businesses in real time. So how does it work? Very simply, a business is asked, as a consumer, you are asked with just one question when you go in. So you might get a question about, please rate the service you've experienced. You might get a question about whether you would recommend the business. Someone else might get a question about sort of the value, the atmosphere. If it's in a restaurant, for example, it's one question and you rate the answer from 0 to 9. 0 being mind-bogglingly dreadful and 9 being absolutely excellent. That data on an IP-connected terminal, which these ones would be, goes up into our cloud, is hosted in our cloud, which is from Microsoft Azure. We're very lucky to be one of the graduates from the Microsoft Ventures program, and they've been very kind in supporting us with our back-end systems. So it goes into our API and then is distributed to 2 places. The first being the data analytics dashboard for the businesses, and then the second, a consumer recommendation site. And we'll go into those in a bit more detail. So this is a sort of an overview of the dashboard that you're getting. But for example, let's take this as a kind of group of restaurants. They can see how they're doing across all of their sort of metrics. That are asked. They can see their performance over time and how it links to kind of what people are spending. They can get a gauge on that. Here is kind of an incredibly sort of valuable element which puts sort of economics to customer sentiment. So ultimately, how much more do happier customers spend with you, and how much are you missing out on? So you can see in this particular example, although there's about 2 pixels for the number, but let's say the top number is around, for fans, it's £47 they're spending, and those that are disappointed are spending £36. That really puts a value to why your service should be improved. You can see best time of day when you're really doing well, equally kind of worst time of day. And when you click into that, we've got further sort of things where you can, a business getting enough data can see on an hour-by-hour basis how that experience is fluctuating. So they can pinpoint kind of hotspots of when things are going well or not so well. You can do benchmarking against all your outlets. So if you're a business running 100 restaurants or something, and you're the operations director, it's quite difficult to keep in touch with all of those. But you can see how they're all doing benchmarking against themselves, and then immediately highlight those outlets that might need a bit more support, or learn from those outlets that are doing incredibly well. You can add your own questions in, so a business may have a very sort of specific sort of requirement or might want to be trying something new. They might be trying a new soundtrack in the restaurant and go, what do you think about the music? Or should we have music at all in here? You know, there's everything that they can do. And then they get so much data so quickly that they're able to make real business decisions based off it. You get notifications, alerts, little ping in your pocket, say that the services have dropped in this particular restaurant, and that's actionable real-time data from helpful consumers like ourselves. And then our algorithms in the background will be able to help telebusiness. You know, it is quite a lot of data, and if they're not particularly sort of data savvy, and this goes to the more smaller kind of mum and pop stores, but we also work for the very large international retailers as well. It's able to say, and this business says, if you improve your experience by just 1 point, you should be able to generate an extra £500,000 in revenues that month or something for your business. So it really is able to offer customer feedback, but related to kind of how business improvements and ultimately revenue. And then the second area for us consumers is to take all of that data and give it to us to enable us to make better decisions about where we consume, the hotels we might like to go to, restaurants we might like to eat in. So we'll take the ratings data from the core questions, not any of the other data analytics, and we will have a recommendations page for that restaurant. And as you can see, this is a restaurant that we have in Soho in London, and over a month, just at 28 days, so it really is what is relevant today? What can I reasonably expect due to the kind of the last 30 days of performance? 3,300 and something odd ratings have gone into that, into that data for you to be able to make a decision. I looked up before I came on here how, you know, the number of reviews that happened on Yelp to contribute to any decision making theirs, and in the 6 years or something they've had, I think it's, I don't know, like 90 pieces of feedback or something. And, you know, that's quite a minor quantity for us to make better decisions on, but also the business itself. So these are just the core questions. I've sort of covered this in the last one, so I can bang on about this for hours, by the way, so I'm limited to the 10 minutes. So we'll whiz through that one. The other thing, if you consider for businesses that are quite sort of data analytics savvy, we can integrate, if the point of payment is integrated into the POS, then you're able to see what people are buying, if they've had vouchers or loyalty, or if they've had sort of discounts. You're able to see perhaps the server that served them, incredible amounts of data that they already have through their POS, but now linked to how that influences the customer experience, which has not been possible before. And then also, sort of surprises, like we very much have consumers in mind. There's opportunities to win prizes, sort of randomly work with a retailer, so sort of encouraged to keep those ratings going. And also we will we pick local charities in the regions that we work in, and then as the ratings go up, you can sort of choose which charity gets a proportion of the pot available. Ultimately, we're creating a virtuous circle here, where you're asked for very little in order to give that bit of feedback. That feedback, the business could improve. As a consumer, you benefit from that data and the improved in services, and hopefully just making the world a tiny, tiny bit better as we go along. I thought I'd give some real-life examples of customers that have this at the moment and what they're doing with it. But I'm not underestimating when I say this really is, this data is becoming an intrinsic part of these businesses day to day. We typically go in and sell to maybe the consumer insight person, the data insight person, but very soon this kind of fills into operations and how they manage their teams on the ground. It becomes, you know, key lines in management meetings, you know, early Monday morning management meetings. How have we performed this week, and, you know, becomes sort of key part of what the C-suite is interested in keeping an eye on. So this is a restaurant business that had a run of a large group of restaurants, and what they were finding on average is that happy customers were spending £6 more than those that felt averagely about their experience. So if you think the number of sittings that quite a sort of casual sort of mid-tier restaurant might do across, you know, sort of 20 restaurants, that's a lot of revenue that they're leaving on the table. They have bonused now. Basically all of the staff, all of the restaurant outlets are targeted on their service scores, and all the gratuity that they collect, because you can also collect that on the terminal, that will now be distributed out in the business according to those service scores, because those restaurants will be generating more revenue. All the managers have it on their app. They're able to actually respond, go, guys, afternoon shift, you know, it hasn't been performing that well, you know, what's kind of going on, and let's improve it. Whereas historically, they might have had a mystery shopper that went in every 2 months and said, you're either doing really well or you're doing really badly, and there was nothing that they could do about it. So they're engaged, they're motivated, and really the data is helping, giving a better service for all. This is a sales cycle strategy for a retailer. They were finding that their sort of value scores and their experience scores and sort of product scores, they started to drop off at the end of the last week that they did their sales strategy. So they get new stock, they do kind of a new setup, and they would do it in 3-week blocks. Those 3-week blocks were, you know, because it was in the last week, they decided to make the cycle much, much shorter. It kept the staff more interested, it kept them more sort of energetic about what they were selling, and the consumers benefited from that too. So they started to do, yeah, that 2-week sales cycle instead. This is like a salad bar. You know, you go and buy sort of gourmet salad and you choose what you want in it and stuff like that. And so quick service restaurant type thing. They had a massive rebrand, and while they had a rebrand, they upped their pricing, as one does. And they were pretty, you know, concerned about that. There had been a lot of discussions of whether that was a pro or a positive thing to do or a negative thing to do. And very early on, from getting that data, the consumers rated them better for value at these higher prices, along with that kind of rebranding. So yeah, that was kind of proven and solved any potential argument on that one. This is a sports retailer. I imagine we all own an item of theirs somewhere in our cupboard. These guys had they had really low value scores. They were able to benchmark against sort of other similar businesses, and they say they weren't doing very well for value. But because they're a very high sort of end sports brand, you can't just put everything on sale and reduce your prices, which is the natural sort of response to that. So instead what they did is they developed sort of training in one store, which was very much about knowledge-led. It was very much about the value that they were offering with their, yes, it's more expensive, but you get more mileage on your runs, it better supports your feet, you know, all of that kind of sort of really involved selling. And through that, their value increased, and value increased, I think, by 4%, and revenue went up by 11%, and they rolled that out. Across all of their stores. And this is being able, in the heat map, they saw that their customer sentiment really fell in this supermarket towards the end of an evening, and they really focused on having strong management at the end of the evening and keeping the store really, really clean, because things kind of tailed off at the end as people sort of got a little bit tired, probably went for too many cigarette breaks at the end of the day, but they were able to see that it really affected the customer. So they corrected this, and the revenues on this one, I think it was increased by around 22%. In all of that, in those same time periods. And then our partnership with AEVI. So we are an app that has decided to sit on the point of payment. It is not an easy thing to do. Traditionally, we have built our software into a bank's own software. They've done it themselves, and we have we evolve our product as we go along. We make improvements based on customer feedback and, you know, well, et cetera, on sort of merchant feedback, et cetera. And it's very difficult for us to maintain. It's very, very expensive. It's got its own kind of product line line that needs to be managed and scheduled and prioritized, and it's agony for a business like ours that wants to kind of evolve as we grow. Now, with these new sort of terminals in the marketplace and the fact that, you know, the payment partner or someone like AEVI can take away all that pain for us, that we can concentrate on what we do really well, they concentrate on what they do really well, and we just leave, you know, we make our product easily accessible without the pain to the merchant, to the bank, and ultimately so you guys can benefit from all of these value-added services that are available. in terms of their open concept of marketplace, that is new. This is, a new frontier of apps and, connected devices on payment. They've typically been very, very closed environments. So I think we're going to see an awful lot of innovation here. And AEVI, being slightly forward-thinking to not want a sort of closed environment, really leave ultimately the customer choice. What terminals do I want? What apps do I want? And the simplicity. I don't really want to worry about the rest. And having an open platform is, a visionary look into the future. And we're very excited to be working with you. So that's it. And we have a demo in one of the tents. Buy food. Okay.
Great.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's really, I think, super important. I mean, again, we live from content. The better the content, the better the apps, the more apps we actually get. I think the better is the choice, really, ultimately, for the merchants. And I think True Rating is a great example what you can really bring as value to small businesses. Typically, that was not accessible at all. These analytics tools to actually get the feedback, to learn from it, to basically act on that stuff. I think that was really more something where large retailers, very big retail chains were fairly good at. And we actually create now, with this open marketplace for SMEs, really a level playing field. So it's a bit like a democratization of retail even. Right? So we are obviously super, super happy to welcome new apps in our community, to basically have as many banks and merchant acquirers to work with us, so that we actually can connect as many devices as possible in a short amount of time. So our aim is really to enable, challenge, and inspire businesses, and to actually, link really again the banks stronger together with the merchants. I think they are to a certain extent fairly disconnected and don't know really exactly what the merchants need and what they could really use as value-added services. Again, I think bring them closer. Also, I think really super important for small businesses that they really interact a lot with their consumers, because ultimately, especially in the retail space where things are being bought either on the internet or with the large retail chains, I think customer interaction can make the difference, whether you do the sale or you don't. Collaboration across the board, all the app developers in the ideal world, all the apps actually interact with each other, so that you really have an ecosystem which is much more powerful than the stuff we have seen so far. And then really do this in an international setting. So cross-border payments, bring global customers closer, again, to their merchants. And all in all, I think the value proposition is with this openness that we all can do more together. And this is what really AEVI, I think, is all about and what we strive to achieve. So with that said, again, I think we do actually have a booth where you can actually meet Albert and look at the apps and how they really work. I think it's actually quite eye-opening. So if you still have time, join us or come over. I think it's booth R10, and then we'll be happy to show you what this all is about in real life. And now we are happy, obviously, to take any questions you may have. Are there any? Okay, so if not, then thanks very much and enjoy the rest of the conference. And please drop by the booth to say hello and meet Albert and get a view on how the marketplace really works with the apps. Thanks a lot.